Father, just guide our talk as we talk a little bit recreation, whether it's the men in this room or those who may listen to the MP3. Just as we think about work, as we try to biblically unpack just what this looks like for us, how you've created us, how wired us, I just pray that we would be models for our family and for our culture, and that we'd have opportunities for the gospel because of it, as we talked about last week, that we'd be redeeming it. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. All right, I'm going to adjust my talk a little bit just because of we started a little late and we got 10 of us and just knowing seasons of life and everything. But we're talking about relaxing and recreation today a little bit. It's kind of, just as a review, our categories of work, kind of simple definitions. Work is just simply energy expended. Rest, which we'll talk about next week, important, is energy recovered. Recreation or recreation, if you kind of look at the word, how it is energy diverted. And escape is energy corrupted. And so we looked at what that looks like. We looked at, because of the fall, there's impermanence and work is frustrating. And because we correspond to the earth, we were made out of the earth and for the earth. Earth is one of the easily accessible idols for men. Work is an easily accessible idol. We have the temptation to escape into work, probably what most of us would trend toward, but we can also escape from work, and those are also extremes. Talk about recreation. It's energy diverted, real simple. There's for those of you who have little girls, some of you, and you've watched all the Disney Worlds and movies, or maybe you grew up when the movie Mary Poppins came out. Some of you probably grew up when Mary Poppins came out. It was like your kid jam. So it was a long time ago. They're actually doing a remake. It's coming out soon. It's a sequel. That's right. It is a sequel. Emily Blunt as the I don't see her. She's killing people in one movie, and now she's Mary Poppins. It's interesting. But so she gets a job and she interviews, and she makes the statement, "My games are most diverting," right? When she's interviewing with the father, the idea that driving attention away from work. It is a diversion. It doesn't mean there's not activity still going on. It just means that you've been diverted. There's stuff going on over here, emotionally, physically, while repair is going on. And so if you can imagine a big picture, I don't have a slide this morning, but of a dam that is kind of breaking slowly, right? And you see, water spraying out here and here. The only way to repair that dam, engineers come in and they divert the water to a point where they can go in and they can repair and fix what has happened, and so that it can function fully again. And that's really what we're talking about with work, that there's a diversion, there's still movement, so that a repair emotionally, physically can happen, even spiritually. And you have to create recreation or recreation. And so just a couple of categories we'll just talk about real quick and some ideas to consider. And I'll push the next part just with our boys specifically into next week, because we can deal with it in rest as well. But two big picture categories we got low impact and high impact recreation. And understand this too. When we talk about recreation, it's not the same as rest. We have maybe you could link those two things together. But where rest is ceasing, right? So sleep would fit in the category of rest, and even ceasing to do anything, which is obviously important. 6 days you work, 7-day rest is how God created it. But recreation is distinct because there's a diversion of energy. It's not a ceasing of energy. So when we talk about low impact, we're talking about when we are stepping away and then stepping down, so to speak, where it's not hard, down in pressure. It's easy, right? Some sort of recreation. So an example would be going on a walk, going on a hike, riding a bike leisurely, going fishing, reading. Maybe for some of you, you guys like, I don't know if anyone in here, but golf, which to me is more energy because I'm running around chasing a ball from side to side. But for some of you, maybe that is a low impact recreation. Things that maybe it's hunting. And no two people have the same kind of cocktail of what that looks like. Some of you who are more extroverted, it might be, I'm going to a baseball game and woo, and other of you, you like solitude because you're kind of an introverted person and you gain energy by getting away, and others you gain energy by being in community or hanging out, and even in community, not just hanging out and having wings, but sitting down with a guy, having face-to-face conversations, what's going on in your life, and whatever that looks like. Some of you, we talked to, for me, one of the things that I'll do just on a whim is I'll get all the boys, and if you guys have boys in a garage, you might do this at some point, you just empty everything out of the garage. All right, this place is a mess, and tools everywhere and toys everywhere, everything out in the driveway, right? We're taking these things to dump, and we're putting it back in. And there's something for me that is just, it's recreation in some weird way, but it also, what's that? It's cathartic, yeah. It's cutting grass for some of you, right? I have boys, so I don't do that anymore, but at one point I did. That's why I tried to have boys. I don't want to cut grass anymore. But, maybe it is painting a room or something along those lines. But it's the point is it's low impact. It's low energy. But it's stepping away from this thing. And the other side of it would be the high impact. And we got some high impact folks in the church where you're stepping away, but you're stepping up. So some people they want to go on a mountain bike ride, where they're up the hill, down the hill, sweating in their spandex, whatever. Or they run marathons, or they're triathletes, or they go for long swims, or maybe it's they're going to build a garage in their backyard. That's their shtick, right? Which is stressful, and get permits and all these things, and but that's for them cathartic. It's not stressful for them. And what we're looking for is for us a cocktail, so to speak, of things to do which are low impact and high impact to help recreate our soul and our emotional health, our physical health, whatever it is. And so just some ideas to consider. The idea for relieving stress. And so some of your jobs, someone like Brandon, you're probably on your feet all the time, going from people to people to people to people, whatever. All you have different jobs. Maybe you're but for me, my day typically looks like, study, meeting, study, counseling, and it's just sitting around a lot, right? And so, I need to do something physical. One of the things, if I'm just been in the office for 4 hours, I need sermon prepping, whatever. Maybe I go out and I just walk the neighborhood one time and make a phone call. Or I just need to do something where energy is diverted, but at the same time I'm not ceasing, just to relieve stress. Maybe it's a hard, couple of days, couple meetings. Yesterday I just had, I can't remember, I had 2 phone appointments. I had 3 phone appointments, and I had a member meeting here, and I had to study here, and I had to get ready for this here. Just all these things, and I just needed to divert at one point. And that was on top of having to go pick up kid, take kid, all these different little things. So, doctors and psychologists, for what you get, will, attribute how much they know or not, but they would actually say that 3 workouts a week of some type where your heart rate gets elevated from 20 to 30 minutes is actually perfect for what you need for your emotional stress, physical well-being, all those things. Just 3. In fact, they say that, I don't know if this, I don't know how much this is true, but what they say is 4 is actually doesn't do any benefit for that. But 3 is perfect. I'm thinking, okay, I can do 3. But 4 is wasteful, then I'm only going to run 3 times a week. I don't want to waste any energy, right? I want to be a good steward. But the idea that is important. To just relieve the frustration piece that we talked about in week 1. 20 to 30 minutes of elevated heart rate. Aerobic. Yeah, aerobic exercise. If you get anaerobic, then it's a different world, Jay. Yeah. That just means your heart rate, you're breathing hard. That's all it means. It means you're not burning fat anymore, you're burning other things, which feels good, but doesn't actually get you skinny. Anyway, that's my PE degree. Here's kind of number 2, litmus test of a good recreation, of a good recreation, is that it makes you ready to go back to work. Right? If you're not ready, if you're like, and it's probably that you escaped and didn't recreate. Right? You didn't recreate. You might have, or maybe you rested, but that's another thing, and we'll talk about that this week. So if your mind is not clear after high impact, low impact, whatever that is, and the cycle that you kind of work through, and you're not ready to kind of, get back in it, right? then it wasn't helpful recreation. And I'm not saying, it doesn't mean you have to love your job, but you're ready to re-engage here. And what I've seen I'm kind of in the middle of most of y'all. So we got a few folks younger than me, and a couple the same age as me, and a couple older. And what I've seen, so the last 11 years in planning this church, planning it in probably one of the most challenging seasons as far as a parent. So we got 3 kids when we moved. We got 4 now. Oldest 17, youngest 10. First couple years was busy, but it wasn't. I only had 3, and we were homeschooling, so it was pretty easy. But the last 4 years of our lives. The church, 4 years ago, we started building that building. It was a ton going on at the church. We're in 4 services. I got 4 different kids, and the first 2 finally go off to school. We homeschooled through that point. And just the seismic shifts in the church that we're still feeling, even when you go from and again, my mentors tried to walk me through these things, but even in his own language, he's like, I can tell you this, but you won't believe me until after, and that's fine. But the changing of a church from 100 to 300 to 600 to 1,000 to 14, the seismic shifts that take place that you don't even realize, you're just holding on, just structurally and staff and just what this means and how you're trying to change, but it's so hard to change on top of 2 kids down here and 1 kid doing this one sport, only just one sport, and then marriage, and then you move. For me, if I could go back and say to myself, just even 4 or 5 years ago, that you need to do a better job, finding opportunity to recreate. I mean, specifically, it probably, and I'm trying to do that now, but it would probably have made me more fruitful in certain points, because I just, I didn't. There'll be seasons where I didn't do anything for a year, really. I mean, as far as purposefully. I mean, I might go out for a jog once in a while. And I would argue that all of us, we got 168 hours a week or something like that, right? I think that's the math. But if we will specifically work hard 6 days, rest 1, not saying don't, but if we would be diligent and be disciplined about putting recreation in that mix, whether it's a 40-minute walk at lunch, or whether it's this here, or maybe it's a 9 holes on Saturday, or whatever for you, not as our passion, because then we fall into passivity, right? Recreation is not our passion, it can't be. But if we would do that, it would actually serve our work better. That I would argue it would probably be more productive with those 168 hours than we are without. And so that's the third idea, is that recreation is designed to serve your work. We don't serve recreation, we'll clamor for it, but it enables us to work better. And so what we need to do, next one, is develop a daily, weekly, even monthly routine for whatever the cycle that you're doing, that we allocate time for this. And again, I remember in the season when we were in four services. It was what was it, a year and a half? I forget. We started it we started after Easter. We stopped it for the summer, but then we picked it back up and went for a whole nother year. And it was just, it was Saturday afternoon at 12:30. My week began, legitimately. So I would go and again, this is 4 years ago, so I've gotten a little quicker on my sermon prep and a little more refined, a little more and I don't need to do as much just sitting down in front of a piece of paper, just because since then I've done 1,000 sermons, because I did 4 a year. So I got 250 in 1 year. I mean, that's so just my ability to kind of know what I need to say or how I feel to say. But I mean, my day, I'd leave the house at noon on Saturday. And I'd go study for 2 or 3 hours and go to church at 5 and come home at 7:30 and, okay, that sermon sucked. I need to adjust it for tomorrow before most people get here, and spend another hour then, and then show up on Sunday morning and do what do we have, an 8:15 and 9:45 and 11:15, right? And then get home, be exhausted, and then Monday morning, starting back over. And most people, you're beaten. You don't feel like starting. You don't feel like doing nothing, but most people don't really care about that. They just want to make sure that next week you show up and it's ready again, right? And so, at that point, I had to, the discipline I had to have was, so Friday, the rhythm I had, Friday was my one day that I didn't do anything, or I tried not to do anything. And we were homeschooling, some of them at the time, so that was my opportunity to be with the kids and do these things. But even then, being very disciplined, trying to, okay, this is the one day a week, and I have to do this, and if I'm going to do anything outside with the kids. But whatever your routine, whatever it is, and it's flip-flop now because we're not in Saturday, which is great. But you need to get your deal developed, and you need to stick to it because it's just important for your work. It's important for your family. Because next thing, recreation is a discipline. It really is. Even this past week, my wife said, when are you going to start taking your full day off again? And I thought, yeah. I mean, that was the question. So, I mean, yeah, because I kind of am off Saturday, but I've actually probably spent 3 hours on Saturday. And I work a half day Friday most times. So I was like, that's a great question. So we're working through that right now. So I'm not modeling very well what I need to be doing, but but being able to even teach this and think about that. What is, and that's more on the rest side, but in that day, being able to just not. So another idea, last thing, how do you handle constantly being, quote, on? And so, how do you deal with your phone? How do you deal with your email? Where are you off? And that's a big one. And I know, especially for guys like me and Brandon, Evan, Toby, we got young ones at home. You got young ones at home. Some of yours are out and about in college. Jay, yours are out and about. You're almost done. You got one more year of college. Well, you just entered college, but you're good. You got a couple more, but they're not in diapers. So,
last tuition payment yesterday, baby.
Congratulations, baby. Can you start sending it to me? Just send it. Bill Fowler. Send me a stipend. That's right. Hey. And because here's the thing, we get our 2 weeks vacation in the summer, or whatever. But vacation alone cannot fix the abuse of your body, over a whole year. And 1 week vacation cannot recover, so to speak, all that we abuse ourselves for a year. In fact, it probably takes a year to recover for a year. Plus, most of us know vacations, at our season anyway, are not, Brandon, you're probably more than anybody, are not restful. It's just not. You're going down to Universal with a bunch of kids. There's nothing restful about it. It's just not. Because not only you're planning for tickets and you're planning to get there. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't think I've ever gone away with my family and my wife where there's not some sort of huge fight within the 30 minutes leading up to the car, and then so the first 30 minutes of the car ride are just awkward and. Until someone says they're sorry. And then you get there and it's just like everyone wants to go. It's just not. It's recreation and that's good, but recreation takes energy and that's the point. And so we need to balance. Vacation is good, but and relaxing is good, and rest is good. But we need to fine line between relaxation, recreation, escapism. All these things. And again, the litmus test is are you numb when you come back, or are you re-energized? Are you ready to go back at what God has created you and called you to do at this point? So it's not it's not one we think about, y'all. I know we think about laziness and sloth when we talk about work, and we talk about purpose of work and all these things. But I tend to think that Jesus with the disciples, there was clearly rest at times, but I think there was things they did, whether it was, maybe it was fishing. I don't know. Maybe Peter and John are like, let me show you how to do this. Maybe they went out and did that, or maybe it was a breakfast at the beach in John, in the Gospel of John, or whatever. But the idea that enjoying energy diverted into this area, this is so sport. Sport can easily become a readily idol for all of us, right? But I think it's a good thing. Not that you go play church softball, but that there's some activity. Played basketball. When I was in seminary, I lived 11 miles from campus, and for those of you who've ever lived in a big city, and most of you guys at some point have, if you got out the door after 6 o'clock, the 11 miles was an hour drive. 5-lane highway all the way downtown, 4-lane all the way to Atlanta. But if you didn't get out before 6 o'clock, you were in traffic for an hour. Just because the nature of everybody in Dallas. Dallas is one of those weird cities that no one lives downtown. Everyone lives outside the city. You guys don't have any downtown housing. Everything's suburbs. Everything's in the metroplex. So a bunch of seminary guys, every morning, I'd wake up at 5 o'clock, and I'd get in the car by 5:20, and I'd be down at the Tom Landry Fitness Center, which is this huge fitness center that Tom Landry was named for. He said, the only way you guys can name it for us after me is if you let Dallas Seminary students be here for free. Because it was for all the Baylor, those in the medical field know the Baylor Medical, it was huge, it's like Memorial and Candler and St. Joe's all put together in like 5 city blocks. It's just mega. And so every doctor and nurse and whatever had access to this place. So it was top of the line. The Dallas Mavericks had their practice court in this thing where any team that used to come from out of town, that would be where they would practice. So back in the 80s, all these seminary students would be watching Jordan down there and stuff until they built the American Airlines Center. But it still had the Mavericks logo. I mean, these 3 or 4 different pools. You go in the locker room, and it was like all this, nice wood. It was just sweet. But we would show up every morning at 5:45 to play basketball, because all of us were sitting on our butts. I took full course loads. I would be in class from 7:15 to 7 o'clock most nights, maybe with an hour or two in the middle. And seminary is, Mark can attest, is not always exciting. It's just not. There's fun times, but that was for us a recreation, a diversion of energy.
Interesting.
It was boring at times. I'm not gonna lie, but that was a recreating of energy, so that I was ready for the day, and it was something it bonded us to, and it was great. But I remember that and we were disciplined about it because the first 10, you know how it works on the court, first 10 play. And then the next 5, you got to wait, right? Until it got to 17, we had 16, we had to roll down, we'd go sideways. But we never wanted to go sideways. We always wanted to go full court, right? But so it was a discipline, man. We're getting up. We got to get downtown. You walk into the court before you go in the locker room. What number am I? You're number 7. All right, cool. You run back, you get your shoes, and you come in. But it was an important part of what we were, just to be active, to use this energy that, rather than sit down on our butts all day drinking Pepsis to stay awake in class. But it made us more fruitful. I look back, I'm like, man, I'm glad I did that. Not only because of my relationships that I was able to, but just I was ready to go. After an hour of basketball, I was ready to go sit in Greek. I was ready to go sit in theology. I was ready to go sit in some of these classes and get through that day. And I look forward to it. And so I think that's a good balance for us. But it didn't take away from my family. It actually energized me to be better dad, better husband. Kept me physically in shape to a point. And got me through seminary. So that would, for me, that's kind of the model of when I was doing it well. Even last year around this time, I was running about 30, 40 miles a week. Felt like I was doing well. Haven't been doing that yet. It's been too stinking cold. We'll get back to it eventually when it gets warm. So, but that's kind of the idea. We'll talk about children and work a little bit next week. I had some thoughts just to remind us. And I know some of you are like, well, my kids are gone, but there's guys in your community group that they have kids, and some of us are still raising them, and so we'll talk about some thoughts about that in the next week. So I'll just throw that in the next week. So we'll go. Let me pray, and we'll go to our group. I guess 2 groups today, something like that. Maybe 1. You guys can decide. But let me pray. Father, just as we're going to go to groups and discuss just a few things, encourage each other, maybe even just talk about things that need to be talked about in our hearts and our lives. I just pray your Spirit would give us humility and openness and transparency so that we can apply the gospel to ourselves. That's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.